Welcome to the QI Gothic Special. It's a dark and stormy night, and 4 contestants are sat in my cave. The ghostly Jimmy Carr. The gruesome Jack Dee. The ghoulish Sue Perkins. And the gibbering Alan Davis. So let's hear, if we may, your blood-curdling buzzers. So Jack goes. Jimmy goes.
Here's Jimmy.
Sue goes. And Alan goes.
Arsenal 0, Norwich City 3.
Well, now, here's something Gothic that starts with a G. What would you call it?
Oh, gargoyle.
Here's
I
Jimmy.
think you were first. It's not a gargoyle.
It is.
Yeah. No, it isn't.
Well, it is, though.
Picture up there, that is a gargoyle.
No, a gargoyle is a special thing. It's a particular thing. What's special about a gargoyle?
It's not a gargoyle because you can't pour milk out of it.
You are. Well, milk is perhaps an unusual use of gargoyle, but...
It is, isn't that what the little jugs are?
Oh, yes, they are, but it's a water spout.
That's water, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a gargoyle. It's a draining implement. It's for guttering. Water comes out of gargoyles. It's from the French gargouille, meaning throat, at the same root as our word gargle.
So what was the thing before?
Oh, is
It also begins with... It's a grotesque.
Grotesque.
Help yourself to a handful of points.
Thank you.
Very good. It's a grotesque, not a gargoyle. Hey, it's as simple as that. It's useful to know that there is...
You say it's useful to know. I think it would have been useful to know about 2 minutes ago. Now, never going to come up again.
Yes, it is. You'll be walking your best girl along the park near the cathedral, and she'll say...
Oh, my best girl.
Yes.
Your second best girl's at home.
Pouring out of her mouth.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, gargoyles spout water. The ones that don't are just grotesque. Now, what is Gothic about the Goths? Yes.
The Goths were an ancient German tribe, I think, who wore crushed velvet and very, very thin drainpipe trousers and spat in shopping centres. And Goths have carried on that tradition to this day.
We're a rampaging army of horny-headed warriors.
Yes, and actually, you should have some points because, oddly enough, people think of the Goths as German, but they were originally Scandinavian. And you look Scandinavian, well, you know, from that
Glaswegian,
area.
Scandinavian.
Norwegian Scandinavians.
They sound dangerous.
They came from Scandinavia, and they defeated the Vandals, who were a group of Germans, which is where we get our word
Hang
Vandal
around
from.
bus shelters.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think you are, oddly enough, the most Gothic of the Goths, because the point is Gothic has been used to mean all kinds of things. What kind of things can you think of that are applied to Gothic?
Cathedrals.
Cathedrals, why are they called Gothic?
Well, is it anything that isn't classic?
Yes, it was an insult, is the point. In Renaissance Italy, they called them Gothic to mean barbarian, because they were conceived to be the people who destroyed Rome and therefore destroyed civilization. So Gothic was a huge insult. So there was Gothic architecture. What else was called Gothic? Gothic literature. That's where you start to get Gothic in terms of the macabre, isn't it?
Yes, and a sort of Byron-esque sort of anti-hero, maybe.
Yeah.
The bad monks and women who always fainted and slightly lesed it up.
Yes. A bit.
Bad Monks is a great idea for a book.
Well, they've done that.
Monk Lewis,
Da Vinci
Mad-
Code
Yeah.
was that.
Oh, yeah.
They should have called it that. Bad Monks.
bad
Go and
old
see that. It's a film about some bad monks. These monks are turned nasty.
Let's keep
Things now
trying
stuck
anyway.
to my head.
Yeah, I would take it off.
Thank you.
Oh.
And what other forms of Gothic are there? Does Carpenter Gothic mean anything to you?
Carpenter Gothic.
Carpenter
That
Gothic.
it was an interesting phase in their recording career, where because she was quite skinny anyway, and she had the mascara. It looked good.
No, Carpenter Gothic.
Was it a death-obsessed Geppetto? Oh, that's American Gothic, isn't it?
That's right. By...
No, I thought it was Norman Rockwell, but it isn't.
No, it's not Rockwell.
It's Grant somebody.
Grant is right. It's Grant Wood. Grant
Grant
Wood,
Wood.
his name was.
Sounds like a porn star.
Yeah, and that is... That's
I
right.
grant wood. Thank you. Whoa!
And that is the actual building there in Eldon, Iowa.
Looks better in the painting, really, doesn't it?
Yes, a little dilapidated.
How have they got Gothic from that? What's Gothic about it?
That pointed ecclesiastical style window is it's a Gothic arch.
It's a bit of a lame effort, isn't it? Considering the trouble we went to over here,
I
the
know.
Americans think they can put a window like that in and call it Gothic. Lazy Gothic.
Lazy.
Half-assed Gothic.
Couldn't be bothered to do it properly Gothic.
Just so it fits under the roof, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, what are we going to do with the window? I don't know, we better bend it in and... Tell them it's Gothic.
Wasn't the guy in that painting his dentist?
You're absolutely right. It was Grant Wood's dentist. Points for Sue Perkins. That's pretty damn good. And the woman...
Is it Gail from Corrie? I'm sure that's her.
Gail Corrie.
Helen
Helen Worth. Very nice woman.
She looks exactly like the character she plays. Very talented.
It was an incredible similarity.
That's very good. Anyway, so there are lots of things we call Gothic. And, of course, there are the young people who go about in black eyeliner and stuff.
Well, I like the fact that it makes me think that the Goths sacked Rome only after being nagged by their mum for a fortnight.
Oh, do we have to? Rubbish.
They are. Goths, I like Goths. I have to say I like
Yeah,
Goths.
they're emotional and soulful.
Now, if they're emotional, they're actually
Emos.
emos, aren't they?
You
I
don't
love
get those two mixed up.
emos.
I love an emo.
I was a goth for a while.
Were you?
I was asked to leave because I was just too miserable. You're a bit of a downer, to be honest.
You're bringing them down.
Yeah.
Bring the Goths down.
I was an emu for a while.
When did the hand come out?
What is the difference between an emo and a goth? I've missed that.
One's a flightless bird,
One's a marauding
and the other one's a
killer.
horny-headed vandal.
And you've got, like, Fields of the Nephilim and Sisters of Mercy, and then you've got, like, I don't know, My Bloody Valentine and Death Cab for Cutie. It's, like, different.
What?
Like being on a show with your dad.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't get it.
That's what we're aiming
I hate
for.
you.
They say that emos want to kill themselves and Goths want to kill everyone else.
I think goths are just, they've decided to bring together all the things that parents hate and fear most.
Yes.
And just put it all into one look, you know, with a pasty face and horrible dyed hair and punk clothing and rubbish music and... Oh! Too much cider.
I wanted to paint my bedroom black when I was a teenager. What's the urge there? That sort of seems to be very common. What colour do you want your room? Black. All of it. Totally black. Ceiling black, all of it.
Were you allowed to do that, Alan, with your room?
No. Lots of wallpaper from Fads, right? And after I had it put up, I was quite pleased with it, and I was watching Coronation Street. This is 1982, I think. And Mike Baldwin was on at home with a glass of wine, flirting with someone with slightly boofy hair, and I
Couldn't be any
realised,
year, let's face it.
as I looked behind him, he had exactly the same wallpaper as me. And I felt really unwell then. I've got the same taste as Mike Baldwin.
Very lowering.
Fad.
But then I settled on that as a role model, and that was fine.
My bedroom, hyacinth bouquet, my bedroom, hyacinth bouquet, my bedroom, identical.
I like the idea that Goths are a little bit like vampires. They so want to be vampires, and they're sort of a bit the same, like they can't go out during the day or in summer. They just sort of melt.
Yeah. And the white faces. Alice Cooper, was he an early... I mean, it's almost a goth look,
It
isn't it?
looks pretty gothy to
It
me.
looks,
Yeah, he counts.
gothish.
Robert Smith of The Cure, does that count as goth?
I'd call that
Defines
pretty
it, doesn't he?
goth.
Yeah.
Susie
He
Sue.
Susie Sue, indeed.
Well,
you look
then-
quite Susie Sue.
That's very sweet of you, but we both know I've got a ridiculous pair of glasses on top. You see, that was quite goth.
Yeah.
That is librarian goth.
It's a new
Gothic
movement.
library.
I don't know about library. I'm maybe supply teacher.
Supply teacher goth.
Oh, just over the glasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Slightly licking the pencil.
Yeah.
Oh, that's coquettish. I'm too old for that. Don't know what
Well,
happened
the
there.
point is there were many things that we call Gothic, and just about the only thing they have in common is that they are completely unconnected to the Goths. But who painted this picture? Yes.
Van Gogh.
Oh, we're after... How is it?
Well, I'm going to go Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh?
Van Gogh.
Here's Jimmy.
Cézanne.
At least you don't lose points for that for some extraordinary reason.
Van Gogh.
Closer, but we
Van
need...
Gogh.
What? Oh, better.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh.
Now, listen, we can help you out with how that name... You came jolly close, Jack. Were you aware there's a Dutch version of QI?
Yeah.
Yes.
And would you like to see the presenter who
Not really.
yes, you would.
They will certainly be naked.
Here he is, and he's going to tell us how the name is
Oh,
pronounced.
yeah, it's going to be pretty good.
He is
So sexy.
Artie
this.
Yappin. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Come on.
Come on, show me.
The correct Dutch pronunciation is Vincent van Gogh. But please don't try this at home.
There you are.
I
Yeah,
love
well,
him.
what would he know?
It's good.
Van Gogh.
He wears more makeup than you, Stephen.
I think you ought to be quite polite because he's actually in the audience.
Oh.
Artie Yappin, there he is. Hey. Hello. Thank you. Arthur, hoe gaat het met jou?
Het gaat goed,
Mopje.
Steven.
Ja,
Ja,
goed?
dankjewel. Ja.
Goedenavond.
Ja.
Excellent to see you. Very good. How does QI... Is it a success in Dutchland?
Yes, people love it.
Oh, good. And do you have a regular person who sits next to you every week?
I do. He's called Thomas van Luijn.
Van Luijn. Is he a bit... what's he like?
How can we put this delicately? He is a bit like Alan.
He's sharp, he's funny, he's clever.
Yes, we have to be kind to them.
And we have to be kind to them.
You can see that behind Van Gogh
Yeah, very good.
is very similar to Mike Baldwin's wallpaper. It's really uncanny.
So
Looks
you
a
had-
little nicer.
You had taste after all.
After
I also
all.
should say Artie Yappin is a very, very, very brilliant novelist. Dank u wel, Arthur.
Dank je wel,
Thank you.
sir.
Bye. That's Arthur Yappin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Are we talking about Van Gogh
Van Gogh.
now?
Yeah, go on.
Because he gave his ear to a girl, didn't he?
Prostitute.
To a
or
prostitute,
Rachel.
yeah.
Well, there,
I'm
yes.
just
I mean, that is
wondering-
the story. One of the
I was wondering if that was a very primitive bugging device. He thought she was cheating and he went, right, I'm going to see. I'll leave that in the room.
There's that John Sayles film. Have you seen it called Brother from Another Planet? It's a really, really good film.
Yeah.
About a guy who's an alien, but he just looks like a black guy from Harlem. So he goes and lives in Harlem, gets a job fixing fruit machines. And what he can do, he can take his eye out and leave it, and then he can still see.
Ooh,
Much as I have done there.
yes.
I don't know why I've shut my eye to tell the rest of the story.
Do you think Van Gogh was eavesdropping using his own ear?
You want
Almost
leaving that around the
certainly.
place.
Almost certain.
Yeah. There is now a theory, of course, that he was cut off by Gauguin in a fight, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's not pronounced Gauguin.
Hey. You've got two G's. at least.
Gauguin.
There we are.
I'll have you know.
He looks like he'd have your ear off in a second. And that's
But of course, he was a bit unfortunate, Van Gogh, in his reactions to things. I mean, there was a girl he was in love with back in Holland, and he went round to see the parent who denied him access, and he put his hand in the flame of a candle and kept it there and
that
said,
would have
for as
really-
long as I keep it there, she can see me for as long as I keep my hand. I'll keep burning it. And the father just blew the candle out and said, go away. Thanks to our friends from the Dutch version of QI, we were able to give you the correct pronunciation of Van Gogh, the great man's name. Sounds like an outbreak of pneumonia in a frog pond. But speaking of these kinds of infectious issue, Alan, you're a zombie. You bite Jimmy. Jimmy, you're now a zombie. You bite Jack. Jack bites Mel, and so on.
Sue.
Stephen,
Come on,
Stephen,
Hugh.
10
Get with the
points.
programme.
10 points now, Stephen, if you know our name.
It's that warm personal touch that you get when you come on this show. Get the conveyor belt, come on.
I'm so ashamed. Oh, Sue, I'm
No one
so...
noticed Hugh.
Sorry, I've just been bitten and been called the wrong name.
I'm sorry, Sue.
No.
I'm so sorry. Yes, you've been... But the point is, there you are, the reciprocation has gone on. You've all been turned into zombies. What I want to know is how long it would take for the whole planet, everyone in the world, to be turned into a zombie.
15
That's
minutes.
6.8 billion people.
I reckon it would take about... How are they travelling? Just in that...
Well, the trouble... Yeah.
That is really...
That
like
is the
holding a
problem.
tea tray on a cruise ship. That is, years. Millennia, maybe.
I think it's a trick question. Because you're vegetarian, and you wouldn't bite me, I don't think. You'd have a salad.
I wouldn't consume you, but I would be prepared to kill you, to turn you into one of me.
And then we will all live in windmills and solve crime.
Well,
I look like the character.
you do, actually.
Not actually.
It is,
Whereas Mel looks nothing like herself.
You don't know, I have to say.
No, I
You look like the other one, if anything.
I know, the other I can't remember her name.
Yeah, go on.
Zombies.
Yeah.
I don't know how long it would take.
32. But they're all
64.
biting one.
Oh, so it multiplies out.
It's an exponential growth, that's the
yes.
point. Although it's 6.8 billion.
Isn't
3
there that
days.
great thing that they did, the Chinese emperor did
3
something
hours.
with a
Yes, no.
chessboard?
Yeah.
He did a thing with a chessboard where some guy said to him, you pay me 1 grain of rice for the first day, and 2 for the second day, and then 4, and then 8. And the guy said, oh, no problem at all, that doesn't sound like very much at all. And then by the end of the chessboard, it's all the rice in the world.
It's more than all the rice in the world. It's way more than all the rice in the world. It's a staggering amount. It's 64 squares. It's 8 by 8. I'll tell you how many it is. I'm going to have to read it because it's not the kind of number you can easily memorise. It's 18 quintillion, 446 quadrillion, 744 trillion, 73 billion, 709 million, 551,615 grains, which is what the whole world could possibly produce in 80 years if all arable land was converted.
So if that's 64, I reckon 30 days.
But it's
Zombies.
not bad. 38 days is it?
38 days.
days for a full infection rate.
Do you know what this kind of progression is called when things like that? It's called a geometrical progression, as opposed to an arithmetic progression.
But if it was really happening in real life, you wouldn't care what it was called. You'd just
run.
bloody run, wouldn't you?
The zombie thing,
Yeah, tell me.
I think zombie is a Haitian word.
You're wrong.
Oh,
But it's associated with Haiti.
I think it's voodoo, isn't it?
Yes, but voodoo originated in...
Haiti.
Croydon.
Whitby.
What is Haiti? It's a Caribbean island peopled by
Oh, so African.
African people, West African.
So don't zombies actually exist in Haiti? I read some, probably nonsense, but that they get their venom from a puffer fish and they give it to
Yes.
people and it makes them kind of appear like, oh, I think he's dead, because they kind of go into a bit of a coma and then they wake up and they're very susceptible and they're like real zombies, and that's where the zombie thing comes from.
You're very right. There was an ethnobotanist called Wade Davis in the 80s who discovered what he thought. It's his theory. It's not universally accepted that the pufferfish poison was being used to create a sort of zombie trance, a death-like trance, yeah. But it comes from Nzamba, the West African word. Well, the point is, going back to the idea of Alan zombieing, due to the power of exponential growth, it would take just over a month for everyone in the world to be like Alan. I think that's worth doing. I'd love to see that day. I really would. Now, where's this fish? We were talking about pufferfish. Where's this fish going?
A massive cat.
It's got decoy written all over it.
Yes.
A bird.
We're in Ghana. Accra, in fact. Can you see a line along the fish? Can you see
Yeah,
what's
that's the lid. That's where
That's
the
the
guy
cockpit.
gets in who power. It's a little mini sub.
What did you say?
Cockpit.
Oh, I thought you said coffin.
It's not.
No.
It's a coffin.
Somebody
In
wanted to
Accra,
look
there's a
at
tradition
You get
of
buried in a thing with a painted face on the front.
whatever you like. It can be a mobile phone, it can be a Bible, it's very common.
Was he cremated or grilled?
Can you have a floating one with a dome top, so just your head's bobbing on the wall?
You can have an aeroplane, you can have a car. Yes, you
Oh,
can
that's
have...
wrong.
Do you think?
Well,
It's just
think
one final chance to be a bloody nuisance to everyone, isn't it? I want to be buried in a 15-foot fish. Oh, do you? Great. That's going to be easy to achieve. You've always been a pain when you're alive, and now you're dead. You're even worse.
What about the red hot chili pepper in the background?
Oh, my
Giant
God.
shoe up the back.
Do
Do you think I'd only buried a pair of Oxfords? A pair, mind.
Oh, they cost $400, you know, at least, and that can be a year's wages.
What a
in
waste
Ghana.
of money.
A year's wages. Well, you're not going to need it once you're gone.
No, that's true, but you're clearly not taken by it, Jack. You're angry at this idea.
Let's maybe cross that. You know.
I don't think there should be fun in death.
If you can't be convenient when you're dead, then, you know, you might as well forget about it.
It's actually quite a recent tradition. It's only about 50 years old.
I should imagine it is. They've had better things to spend their money on, haven't they? Like food.
Oh, Lord. Anyway.
There's a tiny little fish up on the back shelf right at the top there. Is that because you put your cat in or something?
Oh, dear, it's a rather sad thought. Maybe it's just a model to suggest. I don't like to
How
think
quickly
otherwise.
does he knock these up? I'm just thinking, when do they... Because that must be quite depressing.
Well, it's a lot
Because
of
they come
work.
to you and they go, there's good news and bad news.
Yeah.
The bad news is, you're not going to make it. Here's a brochure.
Yeah.
Pick your favourite.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was once in a graveyard with my little brother, just walking through it, and he
You can't begin a story, I was once in a grave.
Oh, walking through a graveyard.
Quite nonchalant.
Yeah. And you know the kind of old gravestones with the little curly bits at the top?
Yes.
And he thought that that's where chefs were buried.
Oh, well, funnily enough, you know, we're going to do a question now about graveyards, I think. If you saw a graveyard like this, what would it tell you?
That signifies...
Yes, it does.
Decapitation.
No?
He...
Looks a bit old and derelict and disused and no, not using it anymore. Or
No,
something.
it's brand new like that. A column...
Deliberately built.
Was
Yeah.
it that distressed look that Kirsty Allsop keeps going on about? On
There's an element of that.
Is it like died young or something?
Yes,
It's like-
life cut short. It's a symbol of life being cut short. Do you have a
I
column?
always thought they were just...
No, it's deliberate. There's a lot of symbology going on in graveyards.
I bet people have fixed those. I bet local
that
councils
might
have been
be
in there
true.
and gone, well, this needs redoing. It's a disgrace.
That might be true. That's a horrible thought, isn't it?
So that's an untimely death. That's like a lightning strike through the...
Yeah, a life cut short, literally that.
There must be an age at which they died where they went, "No, actually, that is fair enough, that'll do."
There's a broken chain, which symbolises,
Messy divorce.
well, a loss in the family, it
Goth.
seems.
A loss in the family? Well, everyone's death is a loss in the family, isn't it?
Apples.
Greengrocer?
Sin. They represent sin.
Sin.
So fallen women would have apples.
Fallen women might have an apple. Why would scientists be interested in liching, particularly in graveyards, on tombstones?
It's a pollution indicator, isn't it? All that moss.
Very good. You're absolutely right. And why is it particularly useful in graveyards? It absorbs pollutants like heavy metals, cadmium and things like that.
Well, you've got the dates on the gravestone.
Very good. That's
You
one
know
reason, so you know
how much of it
exactly.
there is.
Yeah. And also because they tend not to spray graveyards with chemicals. It's considered disrespectful to spray them with, pesticides. So that's good on the grave. Well done, everybody. And what's the best way to ensure that your family never forgets you after you're gone?
Oh,
Haunting.
Haunting is a good way, yeah.
Insists on being buried in an exact replica of your house
Yes.
that they have to pay for and therefore sell the house they live in to
You're still angry, huh?
finance it. Yeah.
Being stuffed.
Well, yes, being stuffed. Now,
Preserved in some way.
there's a very extreme example of
Leaning
that.
on the mantelpiece.
With a pipe.
Just slightly in front of the television so they can't see it. one arm.
Jesus. There was an artist called Hananucha Masakichi.
Oh, yeah.
Have you heard of him?
he's bloody good.
He's excellent.
He's Japanese, and in the mid-1880s he was diagnosed with tuberculosis and knew he was going to die, so he made a statue of himself so lifelike and so realistic. When he stood next to it, people couldn't tell which was which, apparently. He handcrafted glass eyes and then bored a tiny individual hole for every pore of his body, and then took the hairs from every pore of his own body and put them into the other pores. He pulled out all his own fingernails and put them in like that, yeah? His toenails and his teeth, right? Now, obviously, this is a replica because it's quite shiny and obviously not anything like a real person.
Can you imagine if he'd done all that and someone had gone, actually, it doesn't look that much like you, and you're left
No teeth,
Yeah.
no nails.
He pulled his own teeth out while he was still alive.
He wanted it to be absolutely real. It's not.
But sure, who was it for?
Gunther von Hagen.
His girlfriend and his family.
Imagine he'd done it, taken his eyes out at an early stage and realised what a stupid mistake. Oh, damn.
But it found its way, the original, to Robert Ripley's auditorium in Los Angeles. But
Not what he
unfortunately,
had in mind.
it was injured in an earthquake in '96, and it's currently awaiting restoration. There is a replica in London's auditorium. I didn't know we had an auditorium, but apparently we
Yeah,
do.
we do on Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah.
Where did they get this one from, then?
No, this is the one from the auditorium. There are other things you can do, though. You can be turned into compost. Well, what happens is you're dipped in liquid nitrogen and then vibrated, and liquid nitrogen makes you so brittle because you just turn into
Vibrating.
sort of
And
dust.
if
Yeah, it smashes
That's a
into
sales
dust.
pitch, isn't it?
And if that doesn't kill you...
Then they use a magnet to get rid of mercury and other metals, which can then go into the making of something if you wanted to, or into an ordinary recycling thing, so they just make a car or whatever it is, or bits of a car, obviously. And then you've got about 25 to 30 kilograms left over, which gets put into a coffin made of maize or potato starch, and you're then buried and you rot into the earth and you're biodegraded in about 6 months, 12 months, something like that.
It's a weird how the world has changed, isn't it? Because it used to be people wanted to leave a mark on the world. That was the whole purpose of a kind of great laugh. I'm going to leave a mark, people will know I was here. And now, exactly the opposite. I'd like no one to have known.
Yeah.
I won't leave a mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
You won't know I've been here.
Yeah.
Cuban grow bag.
Well, there's a
That's your Uncle Jimmy there.
That tomato sticking out of him.
What about...
I've done Pak Choi this year on him.
I'd be very happy.
What about letting your family see you disintegrate, see you in your coffin? Have a camera.
Have a camera in your
A
coffin?
webcam, yeah. There is a Seattle-based company called SeeMeRot.com. I'm not making it up. I'm not making it up. And they have a light and they have a webcam, and you can watch your loved one basically rot. There you go.
Can I... When you say... The only problem I've got with that is loved one.
Their slogan, being dead and buried, doesn't mean you can't have friends over.
But it's buried underneath. Imagine if you were watching the webcam, just watching and watching and watching, and then suddenly it went... You would be so freaked out by that, wouldn't you?
You know, they used to bury people, and sometimes they'd be scratching on the coffin lid and all that. Because they were in a coma and then they woke up.
Yeah.
Nowadays, they should just give you a mobile.
Yes, I think that does happen. People do. There are a lot of people who are really afraid of being buried alive.
I'm quite afraid of it. Now you mention it.
Honestly, what I mean is they have a real...
Don't bother me.
They're obsessed by it.
Whatever, bring it on.
I prefer it not to happen, but I have to say I don't think about it.
You have a mobile.
There are people who really think about it and plan against it.
I get frustrated enough if I can't get signal if I'm in a hotel.
Oh.
I mean, that would
You'd be annoyed if your battery had run out.
6 feet under, you've got no chance.
Because also, you make that call, but only after checking your emails. Oh, I better get out of this coffin. I'll just check if I've got... Oh, the battery's gone.
Now, perhaps the most macabre posthumous gift, as I say, was that Japanese chap there, Hananucha Masakichi, which he constructed entirely out of his own body parts. But tell me about the vampire squid from hell. What do you know about that? What's scary about it?
Is that it going through your digestive system and the havoc it wreaks?
It does look a bit like one of
I have
those...
had a meal like that in Spain.
When you say it's from hell, it's actually quite nice, and it didn't fit in hell, so it came back.
Its name is Vampyroteuthis infernalis. It has the biggest eyes of any animal relative to its head. If the equivalent in a human, it would be at the eyes of a foot wide.
It would be Natalie Imbruglia.
And yeah, if you like. And there one is. They're rather ugly, I have to say. They're not the
I think
prettiest
she's all
things.
right.
You like that, do you? Oh, there it
My
is.
God, that's hideous.
It sort of looks like an organ of some kind, doesn't it?
It's
It's
rather
rather...
of a baked potato at the moment.
Yeah.
And they live in the dark, so they don't...
They live really deep. They're the big eyes, you can see.
Oh, yes.
There's a tendril that comes out, which
That's off-putting.
They are so deep. They're so deep that their defence is not ink, which would be no good because the water's so dark down there. It's jets of bioluminescent, little, countless bright blue orbs that dazzle anyone who tries to attack them, and in the dazzle they escape.
Their defence is to dazzle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not ta-da!
It's the John Barrowman of deep sea.
Get back or I'll show you my teeth!
Anyway, despite its name, the vampire squid from hell is a docile creature that floats through the ocean, releasing a kind of firework display from its arms when threatened. What's the toughest way, though, to become a mummy?
Well...
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Here's Jimmy! Reverse cowgirl?
Now, they understand that. You're going to have to explain it to them. What is the
Shall I
reverse
do
I'm going to need a
drawing?
volunteer from the audience.
If you were having sex with me...
Yeah.
Or Mel.
Or Mel.
Yeah.
Say you're having sex with Mel, and you're lying down
Yes.
on your back,
Yeah.
and Mel is... I can't use her name in that stuff. She's
Jordan.
sitting on top of you, but looking away. Reverse cowgirl.
I find they're much happier without looking away from me.
That, however...
Especially if they can see out the
is,
window. It's like a budgie.
Wow. And that's
She could be reading a book or watching telly. She could do what she likes.
She can see the telly or outdoors. She don't mind.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It's catch-up time for
So
women,
she's
basically.
doing Sudoku or whatever.
Yes, whatever you need to do. You just...
Yes, you're thinking of making babies, aren't you? That sort of mummy, I realise now as well. Yeah. Can you turn yourself into a mummy? That's the point.
Probably.
Yeah, you could, couldn't you?
Probably
I mean, can
wrap
we-
yourself up in...
Mummify
Well, haven't you
yourself.
got to take your liver out through your nose? That's what they used to do, isn't it? They used to take the organs out through the mouth and nose.
Well, the brain they would take out through the nose. They'd agitate it with hooks so that it turned into a liquid mush and then...
Oh!
Yeah, I know.
Worse than being buried alive? Or...
and then after that, they would kill them.
Yeah, wow. But the Soku Shinbutsu were members of an obscure Buddhist sect who, in Japan, used to practice the rather macabre idea of self-mummification. This is what they'd do. It's quite complicated. It's really interesting. See if you'd do this. For 1,000 days, right, a priest would eat nuts and seeds while taking part in vigorous physical activity so that he had no body fat. He'd then only eat bark and roots for another 1,000 days and then drink a poisonous tea made from the sap of the urushi tree that caused him to vomit and lose bodily fluids. Then he would lock himself into a tiny stone tomb with an air tube and a bell, and he'd sit in the lotus position, and every day he'd ring his bell to show that he was alive. And when the bell stopped, the tube was removed and the tomb was sealed, and then other monks in the temple waited for another 1,000 days and then opened the tomb, and if the monk had succeeded in preserving his body in his death, he would be considered to have achieved the state of a truly enlightened Buddha.
Who
If
made
he
up
hadn't,
that game?
Buddhists.
You know, have you...
It's just a terrible photo of him. If I was going to get all that trouble, I'd have a decent photo taken of me.
I like this because, I mean, a lot of people get away with thinking that Buddha is like the sane religion. Buddhists, you know, Buddhists are normal and decent, but even Buddhism has weirdery beyond belief, really, I'm afraid. Yeah.
They don't do it like that anymore, obviously, do they?
No, it's now an illegal form of suicide.
They have a webcam now, don't they?
As a form of suicide, though, I think that should be promoted because, you know, if you jump off something high and land, it's all over very quickly. You've not been able to think it through. With that, you can sort of change your mind. You go, do you know what? I fancy a drink. After about 900 days, you go, oh, pizza wouldn't go amiss.
But if you open it after 1,000 days and he hasn't turned into a mummy, would you say, that's it, I told you he had a Twix?
Anyway, yes, members of an obscure Buddhist sect in Japan went through an extremely rigorous process of self-mummification until the practice was stopped in the 19th century. In the 1960s, two-thirds of the Americans who accidentally lost a limb, of all Americans, two-thirds of them came from one town in Florida. Why?
Well, because that enormous thing dropped on their leg. It's the enormous donut from outer space took their legs.
It's because it cost an arm and a leg to live there.
Well, hey, now, just because now.
Oh, there's more.
No. I'm here all week. No, it's actually, it was all men, funnily enough, I think. I don't think any of them were women.
Is it the town where they put the diabetic clinic next to the donut shop?
Yes, it does.
Is it the town where the helicopter pad was next to the taxi rank?
No,
An unnatural amount
Sharks.
of...
not sharks, no. This is self-harm we're talking about.
Oh, amputee wannabes. I think I've made that sound disrespectful.
Amputee
Wannabes.
Is it like it's new on ITV2, you are going to love it, I'm presenting.
Yeah. Welcome to Amputee Wannabe. So,
No, it's not that form of dysmorphia. It's self-harm for another reason.
To avoid the draft, is it?
No, but it is for gain.
Insurance.
Insurance is the right answer. Insurance it is. It's from...
when you said avoid the draft, I thought what a cardigan would have been an
My legs are freezing, take them off.
Really?
So you put your jumper on and then wrap your arms around your neck.
But they did do a lot. They
Silly.
sawed them off. It was just became a fever of it. More than 50 occurrences with a town of a population of 500. Most of the limbs were shot off at close range with hunting rifles. Triggers pulled unexpectedly as victims climbed fences, guns misfiring. These were the claims they made. All the mishaps involved men, yeah. Somehow they would always shoot off the parts they seemed to need least, said the insurance claims investigators.
Your left hand.
Yeah, the left hand at work, a man whose foot while protecting chickens, lost a hand while trying to shoot a hawk. A man who lost 2 limbs in an accident involving a rifle and a tractor. But now the time has come to see what skeletons are lurking in our closet of general ignorance. So skeletal finger bones on buzzers, if you please. What does this tell you? Yeah.
It's your heartbeat, isn't it?
Ah, but this...
Well, that tells you you're dead.
Oh, Jackie, baby. Jackie, baby. You've fallen into another trap. No, it's flatlining, it's called, as you probably know. And in films, it tends to mean you're dead. But in real life, if you died, you wouldn't get that.
So why do they panic when that comes up?
Well, because it tells you that in real life, that would only happen if you tripped on a cable and pulled it out.
But hey, well, he could be right then, because someone could have died. They tripped on the cable.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell you that they're dead. It tells you the cable's missing. Then you would find out. Similarly, the defibrillators you use like that, what do you use those for?
To start the heart up again when it stops, or...
Oh, I use them for making paninis.
Very good.
They're paddles, don't they, to get the heart working again?
It's for an arrhythmia, to get it in. It's not to start a heart that stopped. Although, again, in movies, that's what it's used for.
It's no wonder I failed my finals, really.
It is probably as well for the world, though. Anyway, if an ECG monitor goes completely flat, it probably means that somebody's tripped over the cable. After the Vietnam War, who was buried in the tomb of the unknown warrior or soldier?
We don't know. I think all of them are anonymous, deliberately.
Sure, the whole nature of this show will mean that the unknown soldier, it'll be he wasn't a soldier, they knew him, and he wasn't dead.
He wasn't dead. Yeah, the unknown soldier was actually buried in a replica of a large red chili somewhere in Ghana.
Was he an unknown soldier when he was still alive as well? He kept turning up and everyone says, "Howdy, how you doing?"
He seems keen to join in.
I don't know who he is. No, that unknown soldier, he died. Oh, it's burying him.
No, what happened in the case of the Vietnam War was that there was an unknown soldier buried there, but there was a particular family who thought they heard that the unknown soldier had died in a helicopter crash, but they thought their own son had died in the same helicopter crash. And so in the 1990s, they persuaded the American government to do a DNA test on the unknown soldier, and it was indeed their son. So the remains were returned. So since then, it's been empty. It's unlikely there'll be another unknown soldier, because all American soldiers certainly are DNA profiled, and British ones too, so that they will always be known.
That's a happy ending, isn't it?
Yeah, But the original unknown soldier, do you know when this was, the first time it was done?
Was it after the First World
War? It was after the First World War. It was done in the year 1920, simultaneously in France and Britain. In Britain, there were 4 unknown soldiers, and a general pointed at one body, and that became the unknown soldier, who was honoured, it's rather wonderful this, with a state funeral in Westminster Abbey with full military honours, entombed with a medieval crusader sword from the Royal Collection, in the presence of a guard made up of 100 VCs. And the guests of honour were 100 women, each of whom had lost her husband and all her sons in the war.
That's so
amazing,
isn't it?
An amazing ceremony.
And the cenotaph is actually a memorial to the unknown soldier,
yes,
isn't it?
It is. That's right.
What it
so
is.
I mean, it's a kind of
was
way.
It designed by Lutyens, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe.
Yes.
Very good. I think you must have points.
Oh,
I think
hope so.
Make up for the rather large collection of negative points you've been building up.
That's a very funny round, I think.
Well, no, it was.
It'd be interesting to see if we can pick it up from there.
Yeah, but it was quite interesting, if not quite funny, and I think worth it. I mean, just amazing, I thought, that story of that service. Anyway, moving on. Where does the saying, saved by the bell, come from? No? Yay.
Oh, no, I know what's going to happen now. It's going to be... I'm going to get the klaxon for this. Is it boxing? Is it a boxing reference?
Yes.
No.
Yay! Well done. We thought... it is actually...
Because is this where the bell's going to go off?
Don't do it.
Don't
Don't do it. He's going to lead you.
Because it's going back to being buried alive.
Yeah.
How can you get it wrong after he's got it right? That's extraordinary.
Only Alan.
You were literally saved by the bell. He buzzed in and got it right. You couldn't say the stupid thing and you went there anyway. You amazing.
I find it quite interesting, though.
It is
I
interesting.
thought that was the true one.
No, a lot of people do think that.
You had
It
a
is
bell
not true.
tied on
Yeah.
a string to your toe or something, and if you're buried alive, you'd start kicking.
Yeah.
And going ding, ding, ding.
There have been people who have been so afraid, as we were saying, of premature
There was
burial.
a film, wasn't there, of someone, an old film of a man who was so afraid of being buried alive that he equipped his tomb with all these different emergency things. But of course, when he came round, it had all rotted and all the string for the bell had corroded. And
There's an Edgar Allan Poe story called The Premature Burial.
Never going to be that premature, though, is it? Maybe 5 days max.
That's true enough. It's premature enough for most of them. What can you tell me about Mozart's burial, though?
Oh.
Here's
Did they play
Jimmy.
Angels by Robbie Williams?
No.
Was it Bohemian
Do you
Rhapsody?
know,
Was it
do you know they do have a top 10 of the playoff tunes that people choose for going into the... And do you know what one of the most popular is? Countdown.
No!
As we go in, I promise you.
There's a quite interesting fact about this. One of the most popular ones, because it's one of the most popular songs, is Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
Yeah.
And the next track on their best of, if you bring the CD of the best of to play, is Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh, very good.
You've got to be really quite quick.
Yes, you have.
It's a better choice anyway.
It
isn't
is much better.
Well, this is a terrible way to hear that he's dead.
But contrary to common and popular belief, it was not a pauper's funeral he had at all. Only the aristocracy had tombs and vaults in those days. In fact, his funeral cost quite a lot of money. It cost 8 guilders and 56 kreutzers.
Oh, I heard
orchestra
that was all paid for by Guten Tag, which was their version of Hello magazine. They covered it very tastefully. It was really nicely done.
But in Mozart's own lifetime, he had a pet starling,
Starling?
whom he buried, a starling, in 1784. And its whistling inspired the principal theme of the last movement of Mozart's Piano Concerto K453, which you can hear. Well, that's the starling, obviously.
Oh, it sounds
Piano
like a night.
Concerto.
What was that?
No, Mozart wasn't buried in a pauper's grave. He had the same kind of funeral as everybody else in Vienna at the time. And finally, it's time for the scores. And, oh my goodness me. Well, I'm sorry to say that in last place with minus 28, it's Jimmy Carr. A little better with minus 26, Sue Perkins. But there's no question about it. Tonight's winner, tied on minus 17, it's Alan and Jack. So, before the show breathes its last, I've just got enough time to thank Jimmy, Jack, Sue and Alan, and I leave you with the following boo-boo from baseball great Yogi Berra. You should always go to other people's funerals, he said, otherwise they won't come to yours. Thank you and good night.
And the comedy continues tonight over on BBC 4. Here on BBC 2, The Bubble's on the way later at 10:45. More on that in just a sec to find out who's heading into it. While next, Hero is using his superpowers in the past to help save the love of his life. Heroes is coming up.